Hi, this is Bill Stinnett with Sales Excellence, and thanks for tuning in again today. I want to address a question that we're asked quite a lot, and that is, how do you get through to hard-to-reach prospects? Now, they might be hard to reach because maybe they're a little bit higher level in your customer's organization than sometimes you call on. They might be protected by, let's say, an executive assistant or two, or they just simply might be those type of people who are fairly unresponsive to some of your outreach. And so I have a few ideas to share with you that hopefully will help. Number one, I think we need to understand their world. In other words, the world they're living in. We need to, as I like to say, think like a fish here just a minute. Think like your customer and imagine what it might be like to be a customer in today's world. Right? Let's imagine for a second you were on the other side of the desk and salespeople were calling you. And let's imagine that not only you were making calls or one person from your company was calling you, but people from 25 different companies were calling you in even any given day. You would probably get fairly numb, would you not, to some of that outreach? And we tend to not recognize how, from the customer standpoint, what one email or what one voicemail kind of looks like. See, think about it like this. When we sit down to do some prospecting, we might do this in batches. One of the things we teach in our workshops, right? Set aside a couple of hours, do a whole bunch of phone calls in a row, build up your momentum and your inertia, if you will. But think about it like this. You might sit down and make 25 phone calls. You might sit down and bang out 10 or 12 emails. You might send off half a dozen faxes to different companies, let's say, for example, and you're working hard. You have put out a lot of energy, right? You called 26 people. But to your customer who received one of those calls, they just received one phone call. And a lot of times an isolated outreach like that simply doesn't get anyone's attention. And so here's the point I want to make. Point number two, really, I want you to take away from this is I want to recommend that you organize a series of correspondence into what I would call an orchestrated approach campaign or an approach pattern. And this approach pattern really would leverage, I would recommend, several different mediums of communication. So what you might consider doing is to start out with, well, let's say maybe a printed letter. Now, I know a lot of people tell me, you mean people still send printed letters? Nobody does that anymore. And that might be just the point, right? Maybe we need to send out a nice printed letter with what we've learned about their company on there and ways we've helped other companies like them and requesting a time to maybe talk with them the following week or something. Maybe a printed letter would be just what we need to really stand out. We certainly will want to use the telephone, right? The forgotten art of calling people. The reason I say that is because too many of us have just gotten conditioned to send out emails and see who calls us back. Of course, email is one effective way to reach out to people. What about the fax machine? You know, people laugh at me in workshops when I say might want to send your customer a fax. And I'm continually humored by those who would actually laugh, because think about it like this. Every customer that you have has a fax machine. It's sitting there, turned on, it's full of paper, and it's ready to go. And nobody ever faxes anything. Think about the opportunity here, right? What's going to happen when a fax arrives at the front desk of that fax machine, at the front desk of that? What are they going to do with it? They're going to see who it's for. They're going to probably hand walk it down and give it to them. What a fabulous way to differentiate yourself in terms of prospecting. Now, some people say, hey, nobody has an actual fax machine anymore, Bill. They receive it to their email. I recognize that. But when they receive email with something different and unique, like a fax attachment, who's not going to open that and take a look at what it is? Let me tell you a statistic that I heard recently that blew my mind. This was based on some research that was done. A message that you send via LinkedIn, right, what they call an in-message. If you take the exact same copy from a typical email, cut and paste that into an in-message through LinkedIn, it's 19 more times more likely to be opened than that exact same message and same subject line in a standard email. Doesn't that tell you something? People are curious to see, what is this exactly? It's just unique enough. And of course, in the case of LinkedIn, they're probably thinking, well, this is somebody that I know, and chances are you do know them. And so you'll be able to get their attention when maybe a typical email would not. All I'm trying to drive here is let's get creative. Maybe it's stopping by when we're in the area and walking up to the front desk and saying, "Is Bob Brown in today?" Now, I know many salespeople that would be terrified to do something like that in today's world. I got to tell you guys, a lot of salespeople that have overcome, let's say, the embarrassment or the social stigma with walking into their prospective clients' companies, find that they can get access and meet with people and talk with people that would otherwise never answer their telephone. And so all I'm suggesting again is that we get creative, we think outside the box, we come up with some other ways to get people's attention. I'll tell you another one. Sending a letter, a nice put together letter as I mentioned before, but sending that in a FedEx envelope or DHL or even priority mail from the post office can get your prospect's attention when a typical email won't. People have become numb to email especially, and also to voicemail if they even check their voicemail anymore. And so we've got to get creative. But here's the point I want to make with this idea of an orchestrated series of touches. Start with whatever you think works the best. Maybe I like the printed letter first because there's nothing quite as formal an introduction to someone who you don't know than taking the time to write a nice letter from you to them, not a form letter, but something that specifically speaks to something you've learned about them, about their company, or about them individually. Specific 3 bullet points maybe of how we've helped other companies like them, a specific request to talk at a certain time next week. Mr. Johnson, I'd like to reach out to you Wednesday morning at 8:30. Please let me know if that works. If it doesn't, let me know of a time that does. A specific introduction letter like that can get attention when nothing else will. So maybe you start with a letter and let them know I'll be calling you next Tuesday morning at 8:30, or was it Wednesday at 8:30? And when you call, if you don't get them live, you can leave a voicemail saying, "Mr. Johnson, I'm sorry I didn't connect with you, but I'm going to send you an email right now, and whichever way is more convenient, you can call back or you can just reply to the email that I'm going to send. Let me know if a different time this week will work better. I'll call you Thursday at 10. And if that time doesn't work for you, please just let me know of a better time during this week." Weave together a letter with a voicemail, with an email, maybe with a fax, maybe with sending a letter in via FedEx, or whatever else you can think of that's a creative way to get somebody's attention. I love to call the front desk person, let's say a receptionist person, and ask them if they can take a personal handwritten message. Can I leave a message with you for Mr. Johnson, or who? Sometimes a written message on a piece of paper or one of those little while you were out sticky notes given to someone can get their attention when, again, a whole bunch of emails won't. So if you get creative with this, I think you'll be surprised at what a response rate you can get. Of course, you'll have to reach out frequently enough to get recognized, and so you might send in a letter and they receive it on a Monday, call them back on a Thursday. If nothing happens, maybe I want to send an email that same day, but then try them again the following Tuesday. Reach out to them every 2 or 3 days for a period of about 2 weeks' time. And I think you'll be surprised how many more responses that you get. Now, I'm not saying that everybody's going to say, "Yes, come and meet with me. Absolutely, I can't wait to place an order." But you'll get more responses. Some of them will be, "No, I'm not the right person. We're not interested right now. We just bought from somebody else." You're going to hear a lot of different kinds of responses, but you can deal with those as you get them. The key is that you want some kind of a response. What I have gotten sick of course, is just sending emails or leaving voicemail message and getting nothing. If you'll follow these suggestions, this idea of a series of touches, especially every 2 or 3 days over a period of time, you're going to get a higher response rate. And something, in my opinion, is a whole lot better than nothing. Many of them, however, of course, will lead to the next step of a scheduled telephone call or a meeting, which makes it all worthwhile. So I hope some of these ideas help you. Thanks for tuning in again today. I'll see you again soon. Bye-bye.